Hello, I'm a digital artist who makes art for at least 8 years already. Considering that, I do love to experiment and always trying to learn something new. So today, I'd like to tell you about one of my art explorations, and this is about how to draw nature realistically. This little art lesson is dedicated to all of those who tries to draw grass and bushes, but they seem kinda natural and dead. So if you're one of those, stick with me. Today I'll show you how to make your environment art feel more alive. Basic concepts to keep in mind for realistic natural environments, simple step-by-step tutorial, and a bunch of useful tips to make your art even better. If you don't want to miss it, stick with me. But what did I decide to make this video in the first place? All started with me looking at my landscapes and thinking, well, it looks okay, but the plants seem to be rather plastic than real. It bothered me for a long time, and also it always fascinated me how other artists make their paintings just blow with life. Just look at this! How do they do that? I started looking for some information on this topic and noticed that there's only step-by-step guides or tutorials on YouTube, and it's kinda difficult to find really helpful lessons. I know that I'm probably not the only one who struggles on how to draw grass and other plants, so I really wanted to try to find out at least some information and share it in this digital painting video course. And then I decided to dive in and explore. I made some research and started paying more attention to the nature around me, and it gave me some basic concepts to keep in mind whenever I draw plants in the environment. Firstly, it gave me the concept of a natural flow. The nature flows and breathes, creating different shapes and forms. It's always changing and moving, so it's really important to simplify and create general flow and movement in order to keep this organized. And the easiest way to do it is to create simple shapes and then layer all of the details on each other. Plants are most likely to grow in the direction of light. All of them are growing differently. Some are smaller, some are bigger, some are taller, some are shorter, etc. Secondly, the variety concept. And oh god, this concept is the main reason I was struggling with grass and foliage so much time. But the flow is still not quite enough to make the environment feel realistic, so add some variety. The main problem of the most beginners that they are drawing just one or two kinds of plants, as the exact same short grasses and maybe a little bit of longer grasses in some places, I know. And it looks really unrealistic. Remember that all the plants are unique, and there's super low chances to find the exact same two plant pieces, I know, on one grassy field. The nature is not ideal, but this is the reason it looks so majestic and so realistic. And lastly, the illusion of details. You know, it would be kinda difficult to draw all of the details in a landscape, but in reality you shouldn't do that. It would be a huge waste of time. All you need is just to create an illusion, adding variety and detailing in the most important parts of the scene. Just learn to simplify, and remember not to overmake the details. It will make the composition unclear really quickly, so you and the viewer would have a hard time in understanding what's going on here. And the first thing to do is not thinking about details, is to the base. This is where I'm defining a general shape of the field, trying to create its volume and make basic shadow and lights. There is not so much to talk about actually. But here they come the stage 2. Here I am adding some more details and already creating the base for the various colors. That's to say, I use not only one shade of color for light, for example, but changing its saturation and hue to feel more random. The third, textures. And this is the part we all were waiting for. Now it's time to add all of these natural textures. So I'm going to make the bushes bushier and the foliage fluffier. But remember one little thing. The further the plants, the smaller the objects and more unclear the shapes. It's all about perspective, so add the most details in the places that are the closest to the viewer. And the last step is details and variety. This step is all about the variety key concept. All the plants are unique, so try to diversify all these plants by their shapes, sizes, heights, etc. And try to use as many different kinds of plants as you can. Consider the last two steps as the layers for the base shapes. They are unnecessary, but if you really want to make environment feel realistic and alive, add these layers then. They will help you out. You can experiment and try to make environments with 1 to 5 layers of different plants. It's all about your preferences and stylization. As for me, 3 layers are the most optional choice. Not that many, but it's enough to create this realistic feeling of variety. You can start by 3 layers too, so it would be easier to keep the composition organized. Imagine this layer as the presets in which you can add a variety of options and then randomly place them in your landscape. For example, you can create an environment of the following layers: grass texture, small and low plants, big, wide and tall plants, and some, clavers, for example. I'm sorry, I'm not that good in plants and in plant names. So, for each, you can use a variety of plants, shapes, special brushes you chose. After we have learned the basic concept, I'd like to share some little tips with you. Maybe, I hope, they may be useful for you. And also, I'd like to show you some of my study processes, as this little forest spit painting, for example. So, back to the tips, I'd like to start with these. Grab attention with the details. Our brain understands the information it sees super fast, so the viewer will not take a lot of attention to simple objects, but unclear or detailed shapes will, just because we need some more time to understand it. The brain is always looking for answers, and it's kinda hard for us just pass the information not even understanding it. The tip number 2. Use custom brushes and photo bases. Custom brushes and photo bases are both really great tools to speed up your painting process. You can simply use already prepared instruments instead of drawing each little detail individually. And this can save your time by a lot. I mean a lot. But keep in mind that you need to fully understand the key concept we have talked about earlier. And the only way is to draw them manually first. Otherwise, you have really high chances to make your drawing over-detailed really quickly. Actually, I remember times when I was struggling with this problem too. I wanted to use all of these cool and realistic brushes, but it always turns out to look awful just because I didn't understand how does the nature works. I just smashed all of these grateful magical detailings by some cool artists, and really it looked bad. Tip number 3. Use the lasso tool. This is also really useful instrument for speeding up your art process. It's a fast way to make simple silhouettes you can use for detailings later. Also, with the lasso, you can try to make your own brushes while learning. Some of the brushes used in this studying are made by myself, for example. If you are interested in it, leave a comment. I'll leave it on my Buy Me a Coffee page then. And the other brush set is by Devin L. Lecourt. I just hope I pronounce it right. You can also find the link on them down below. The environment art is just magnificent, and the pack is full of useful brushes for adding variety to your art. Tip number 4. Explore and explore. Pay more attention to the environment and try to understand it, or even feel how the nature flows. Analyze more references. You can also look at how the other artists implement the main concepts we have talked about in their paintings. And last but totally not least for this video, do not over-detail. Just keep in mind always that you should better make simple but not over-detailed. All these plants are really easy to over-detail, especially because it's always really pleasant for us to make all of these little detailings. I know you're all artists, but try to stick to this art plan: base, texture, and only then the details. Do not render when you don't even decided on the main shapes and objects, and when especially you don't have any simple shapes, any simple lights and shadows. Also, it's really important to keep the composition clear, otherwise the viewer cannot understand what to even look at. So don't forget to check your contrasts in black and white, and start from the basic shapes. But also, remember, a mess is what makes the nature in art feel so realistic, and we need to balance an organized composition and a mess to come with this feeling. If you would like to know more about how to make clear and interesting compositions, let me know. I'll share some tips I know in one of my future videos. It would be great to practice new knowledge, right? For example, try to start by making little sketches of individual plants or trees, keeping in mind this step-by-step guide. Then, when you will feel confident enough, combine all in one landscape illustration. Try to draw a forest scene, a field, plant close-ups or something similar. This way you'll understand the basics, and a huge amount of details in the scene will not be so much confusing. So go ahead and try. After that, I'll be glad to know this video was useful for you, so you can tag me whenever you share art pieces which you used the tips I gave you. Well, that's all I wanted to tell you today. I hope this video will be helpful in your art journey, and if so, don't forget to like it. This way I will understand that you liked it video, and I will try continue making videos like this. If you have any questions, write about it down below. I will answer as many questions as I can, or even make another video to explain it better. So grab your pen and have a good time painting. See you all!